Attorney Coral. I am Attorney Coral PLEAS, the host of the show, which is sponsored each and every week by Columbia Savings and Loan Association. Every Thursday morning, we come to you live with the Money Talk Show on WNOV Radio, which is at 8:60 a.m. or 106.5 FM each and every week. Thank you so much, listeners, for listening. We have a very, very special guest this week. I am so happy to have with me in the studio this morning Sarah Godlewski, who is our Secretary of State for the state of Wisconsin, and she is an extremely impressive young woman, a fifth generation Wisconsinite from Eau Claire, and she's had success in politics as well as business, including having run a successful statewide race and being elected as the state treasurer in 2018 before being appointed eventually by our governor to be the Secretary of State for Wisconsin. Sarah is a proven winner. A proven winner. And she most recently announced that she's running for lieutenant governor. So, Sarah, I could go on, and I could talk about the Pentagon and all kinds of other fantastic things you've done. But I know we only have an hour, and I know there's a lot you want to say. So I would like for you to greet the audience and just say hello to everyone who's listening.
First of all, Coral, it is so great to be here with you. And I just want to say thank you for what you do, because I think one of the things we know that is so important is to talk about money and like what it means and what's going on. And you are a trusted voice who not only has a legal degree, but is leading the only Black-owned bank in the state of Wisconsin.
Thank
you. That is really important.
Yes.
So I know listeners are getting constant good information in a world where I think people don't know where to go all the time for for trusted information. So
Yeah.
Thanks for having me here, Coral, and all the work that you're doing.
Appreciate that so much, Sarah, because time goes by so fast. It's already been a year since we celebrated our centennial with Columbia, and you were gracious enough to come. And you, Ernie and I say you rocked the house. You rocked the house that night because you stood up and you gave a speech and you pumped your little fist and you just said so many important things, so many valuable things, and that support that you've given, for this bank and the importance of it in the community cannot be understated. We were very fortunate that night. We also had our county executive, David Crawley, who was there, as well as Marcelia Nicholson, the board chair for the county board. So we were, very fortunate to have those others with us as well. But you came out and you supported us that night. And so thank you for that, being there then, and thank you again for being here now today.
Yeah, well, I remember, just for our listeners, it was a wonderful event celebrating 100 years of this bank. And I think what is so impressive to me is that some of the kind of tenets on why the bank was started, making sure Black folks had access to capital and could get the resources that they needed back when they started it over 100 years ago. I think about how that some of that is still really relevant today.
Absolutely.
I mean, we know, for example, Black women are the fastest growing group of entrepreneurs. Coral, you know this, but yet they are 3 times more likely to be rejected for a loan.
Right.
Like, what is happening? And yet they are more successful when you actually give them a chance. They do more with that money and have a higher success rate than any other group. So it's like, what are we doing? Like, the numbers don't make sense in why there's a high rejection rate versus their success in actually what they do with that money.
Right.
And so this is yet another example about why Columbia, as an example, kind of creates that equal playing field to ensure that people have, whether it's access to a savings or a loan, like you name it.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up, because that's exactly why we're still relevant. And as you said, I mean, Columbia was started because 100 years ago, Black business owners and so forth did not have the same access to banks and banking institutions to get money in order to either to help a business or to even buy a home. And but even today, and as you just mentioned, the statistics that you gave, I knew that Black women were the fastest growing entrepreneurs, and I believe also the fastest growing in terms of college degrees
Yep.
and education and that sort of thing. But so I'm not at all surprised to hear though that, you know, it's not growing in that way with respect to being able to get loans. So Columbia is very relevant. So I don't miss an opportunity then to plug the
Right.
bank
Right.
and just say, please, you know, to the listeners, come and put deposits in the bank. Put a savings account with Columbia or a CD with Columbia, because banks need these deposits in order to go out into the community and to do the good things that we like to do in order to support the community. We do need depositors to come and open a CD or open a savings account with Columbia Savings and Loan.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll also just say this to Coral before I know we got a lot of other topics to talk about. But when I was getting ready for that speech, one of the other statistics I found that was just mind blowing is that even though Black Americans make up 13% of the population, they make up less than 2% of executives in banks. So there are more executives named John than there are Black bank executives
Wow.
in the entire country.
Wow.
So, like, help me understand that,
Yeah.
Carl. But Columbia is another example of, you know, you have Black executives leading this bank.
Yes.
So,
yeah.
that's
So
great.
thanks for your support.
Yeah. Yeah.
So right away, I want to give out the number here for the show, because we are going to be providing information this morning. We want to be informational for the community, educational for the community. The number here, if there's any questions that you have for Sarah or anything that you'd like to add to the conversation, please give us a call. The number is 414-444-5250. That's 414-444-5250 or 5253. Please give us a call. Sarah, it's timely to have you here because I told you that we have been talking a fair amount about insurance.
Yeah.
And the importance of having insurance and all the different types of insurance. And that has been particularly relevant to the Milwaukee listeners that suffered through the flood a month or so ago. And so we've been having a lot of questions with respect to that. But before we go there, it looks like the line is lighting up already here. So
Oh my gosh.
I'm going to go ahead
All right.
and ask our first caller. Please, caller, go ahead with your question or your comment. Please go ahead.
Hi, this is Michelle Bryant.
Oh, hi, Michelle. How are you?
I am good. I am good. I am in the truck and I heard who the guest was and I got super amped and excited. Two rock stars, both of you women in the studio. But I just wanted to say that, yes, in the time that we were in the Senate office, the work that Sarah Godlewski did to empower this community and bring information and be creative and think out of the box. I am excited to hear the conversation this morning. I just wanted you to know you have friends out here that are listening.
Well, thank you, Michelle. That means so much. And quite frankly, when can the three of us?
We'll have to set it up.
I would
we'll
love to do that. You know, join you for coffee in the morning, Michelle.
Definitely. I mean, this show is so informational. I learn a lot every time this sister is on. So I am ecstatic. And Sarah, when you said Black folks, I started cracking up. I was like, yeah, she has been around the family way too long. To my Black folks. So, ladies, continue with the conversation. I look forward to learning this morning.
Michelle, thank you so much. We really do appreciate your call in. Thank you so much. So it looks like we do have another caller right away. Caller, thank you so much for holding. Please go ahead.
Hi, I just had a couple questions. I was wondering where exactly was the Columbia Bank located?
Sure. Columbia Savings and Loan Association is located at 2020 West Fond du Lac Avenue in Milwaukee. So that's right where Fond du Lac Avenue intersects with North 20th Street and North Avenue. So it's kind of a little corner there where all three of those streets get together. That's right where Columbia
kind of where
is.
Milwaukee Mall was. Okay. And what's the hours of operation?
We are open Monday through Thursday from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. and Fridays from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. We are closed on Saturdays and Sundays, and we'll be closed this coming Monday because it is Columbus Day. So all the federal holidays we acknowledge.
Okay. And then one final question. What does it cost to start a CD?
There's a minimum deposit of $50 in order to open any type of account with Columbia.
Thank you so much. I always hear about y'all on the radio, but never really knew about you, and I always wanted to support it. So I
Okay.
get some time. I'm gonna try to get over there and get me a CD open for you.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, and we'll look forward
Thank
to
you for taking my
having
call.
you. Thank you. Thank you.
Have a blessed
Yeah.
day.
So Sarah, we were just about to segue, and I mentioned that we had been talking about insurance and different types of insurance earlier, and I thought that that health insurance would be a topic that you might like to address this morning, particularly given the government shutdown and what impact that's having on people. So I want to give you the floor and just have you talk about that a little bit. I think people be interested.
Well, we know insurance is so important, and no one should. I truly believe at the end of the day, healthcare is a human right. You know, as my grandma said, if you're not healthy, you can't work. You can't support your family. You can't do a lot of things. And so if you don't have access to your health, like, what do you have? And when you look at your options on how do you get access to quality, affordable healthcare, you really have three. You can either find it through your employer, if you're lucky enough that your employer even offers it. I mean, I talk to so many gig workers or delivery drivers or like part-time folks that they don't work 40 hours a week to even qualify with their employer. But that's one reason. So then if you don't qualify, what are your other options? So you can either get health insurance through the Affordable Care Act, which a lot of people nowadays call Obamacare, and the public market, or you can get it through, like, potentially, if you are in a certain income bracket, through Medicaid, or if you're over 65 through Medicare. So a lot of folks are, when they're looking at their options, they're like, I don't know what to do. And it seems like the best option for me is to just, if I can, it's to go through the Affordable Care Act because my employer doesn't offer it. We know almost 300,000 Wisconsinites are right now on the Affordable Care Act. Here's what's, I think, really scary about things is that right now we know medical debt is one of the leading causes of why people just simply can't afford things because they don't prepare for, they don't, no one knows when they're going to get sick. It's not something we are prepared for. And then they don't necessarily have the insurance. And so they've gotten then insurance through the Affordable Care Act. But what is so scary that we're seeing right now is that one of the reasons why so many people can actually afford Obamacare is because they get a tax incentive to get this health insurance. And that tax incentive, believe it or not, Coral, is actually going to expire at the end of the year. And so based on your age, where you live, and how much money you make, typically, because of these tax incentives, the average American saves around $1,000, Coral, which is a lot of money.
It is.
And those subsidies are going to run out. So what that means, I just want to put it in perspective. If you're 60, you right now get your health care through the Affordable Care Act. You're paying around $400 for your monthly premium. Okay. If you make around $60,000 a year, without that subsidy, you're going to pay $1,300.
That's a huge difference.
That's over $800.
Right.
Coral, like, in a time of inflation, who can afford that? And so people are asking, why is the government shut down? Well, the government is shut down because, let's be real here, you have Donald Trump, who is a Republican, in the White House. You have the Senate and the Congress is controlled by Republicans. And the reason it's shut down is in their budget bill, they refuse to make sure people have these healthcare tax credits or subsidies. And so we're sitting here going, we can't sign a bill that's not going to give people access to affordable health care.
Right, right.
So to me, I think this is something that is front and center, Coral, because I was just talking with a senior just yesterday, and she's like, I don't know what I would do if I didn't have that healthcare subsidy. Like, I'm not going to be able to get the care that I need. And so what is this woman like doing? She's skipping her prescription drugs, not because she wants to, but because she's just trying to save every penny she can. And to me, that's not right.
No, not only is it not right, it gets to be dangerous
Right.
if people aren't taking their prescription medications.
Right.
Because then they'll have additional health concerns that
Right.
they won't be able to address with this insurance that they can't afford. And even with the example that you gave, you mentioned a 60-year-old person, even if it's a 65-year-old person, let's say it's someone that's retired, where are they going to suddenly get all this extra money, $800 more to be able to cover this insurance cost?
Right. Right. And I think what is so concerning is that 90% of Wisconsinites get these subsidies. So we're not talking about a handful of people that might be, in different parts of the state. We're talking about 90% of folks that are using the Affordable Care Act are getting subsidies to help them afford for that health care. And when we're seeing costs already rise, I mean, I went and got a coffee. It used to be $2.50. Carl, they said, oh, it's $5. And I go, is that with your 25-30% tip? And she goes, no, like that's what we have to do because we're seeing increased costs across the board. And so people are already just worried about putting food on their table,
Right.
paying for their like rent. And then you're going to, at the time that folks are most vulnerable, then say, oh, you don't need these tax incentives anymore to help you afford healthcare. It's just, to me, it's horrifying and it's wrong.
Right.
So that's why, so to just like put it in perspective to folks, people are wondering why the federal government is shut down. And I want to just be very clear. It's because the party that is in charge right now has made a conscious decision to not give folks these healthcare subsidies at a time when I think now more than ever, people need a leg up. And it's not that folks don't often want to work. It's that they don't have healthcare or have the resources to make sure that they can.
Right. And you said it at the start of the show, it's a basic need.
Right.
It's a necessity. There's nothing luxurious about having healthcare or being able to take your prescription medications. That's not a luxurious thing. This is about life. This is about life or death.
Right. And the reason, Coral, I think why this is also important to talk about is that we are about to approach open enrollment. So let's say you are, you right now drive Uber and you are not getting healthcare. You can go to healthcare.gov and starting November 1st, you can actually then pick a healthcare plan that is affordable for you. And you can then see potentially how that subsidy would be helping you. But the challenge is that there's risk at the end of the year that might not be renewed. And that's exactly why folks and Democrats are fighting for this.
Right. So what can people do? What can, the people at home or people that are listening, is there anything that people can do, or you just have to kind of wait and see how this pans out?
I think
what would be your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think the big piece is we know at the end of the day, these representatives work for you. I mean, I report to you right now listening, so feel free to call me. But on top of it, so do the 6 million other Wisconsinites. And so I think there is a lot of power in calling and saying, like, enough is enough. You need to make my healthcare affordable. Like, I actually care. And at the very least, I mean, here's the irony, Coral. If you're going to shut down the government, you should not get paid as a representative.
Well, right.
I mean, like,
that'll get them back to work and figuring it out.
I mean, Coral, if you didn't show up to work, would you be getting paid?
Not at all.
No. Working people don't get paid when they don't show up for work.
Right.
So why do we think that we can pay these representatives in Congress when they shut down the government?
Right.
And so I think we got to call and say, at the very least, let's stop you from getting paid. But furthermore, just make sure we have access to affordable health care.
Right.
Like, reinstate these tax incentives and these subsidies to help us do that.
Sure. So, what are some of the other programs that are being affected by the government shutdown?
So that is actually a very good question. And I'm gonna I brought a little cheat sheet here, Coral. So I want to make sure that we've got all of that right. And then I think there's some other things that we should talk about Medicare and Medicaid, because I'm sure some listeners are interested in that. But right now, for the most part, it's almost like a spigot. Like we've got a pool of money, and then at the longer the shutdown lasts, it's like the smaller, like the pool just gets a lot smaller. So your, social security, your veteran benefits, like none of those things right now should be impacted. But at the same time, we know that like food share, right? Folks that are on food share here, they should have gotten their October payment. But the longer that this goes on, the more these exact services are at risk. We've seen, for example, like SBA. So some people, this is with the Small Business Administration. They like their loan guarantees, for example, might be paused if they're working through that. Or there might be limited operations if you are getting services through HUD, like the Housing and Urban Development Agency. And so certain agencies are also starting to scale down to limited services, which furthermore just illustrates how important it is that we get this resolved sooner rather than later.
And I know it's happened before, with the government shutdown. But I'm just wondering, just with your knowledge of politics and history, like what's the longest time this sort of thing has gone on before? And I'll leave that an open question, because it looks like there's we have to take a break now here for a commercial break. But again, thanks to the audience for listening. And please, the number here is 414-444-5250. The Money Talk Show has our Secretary of State, Sarah Godlewski, with us today. Thank you so much, Sarah, for being here. We'll be back with more right after the break. with Money Talks with Attorney Coral. I'm Attorney Coral PLEAS, and I am so fortunate to have our Secretary of State in the studio with me this morning, Ms. Sarah Godlewski. Hello, Sarah.
Hi, Coral. It's oh my gosh, I can't believe we already went through the first 30 minutes.
Yeah, it
Just
goes so
flows
fast.
by.
It goes so fast. Yeah, because we're having fun, but we're
Right.
giving good information to people. We've had some great callers, and I want to encourage callers to still call in. So I like to give the number out again. It is 414-444-5250. 414-444-5250 or 5253. If you have questions or comments or even concerns that you would like to call in and have Sarah address while she's here with us today. So thank you so much for being here.
Yeah.
We were talking about healthcare before we went to break. So I know you have a lot to say. So I want to just turn the mic over to you and give us the information that you'd like to share.
Yeah, Coral, I will say the other thing too, as people are trying to figure out and think about resources available, there is a number 211 Wisconsin that I just wanted to share with folks. It's not and what this number is it just you can kind of share what you are dealing with, and it can connect you to other resources. And so here in Milwaukee, that number is 414-773-0211. Again, that's 414-773-0211. And the whole purpose of kind of 211 Wisconsin is to be a connector with folks. So as they are thinking, or, as things they might be wondering about certain resources, they can be connected in the right place. Because I think one of the biggest challenges we have is people don't know where to go.
Right.
And this is a really great service that will help you do that.
Right. Okay. Nope. That's very helpful. So thank you for sharing that.
Right.
That's going to help a lot of people.
The other thing, Coral, that I really wanted to spend some time talking about, because again, we are living in a unique time where we're seeing costs on the rise and folks continue to live paycheck to paycheck, is for those folks that are on Medicaid, which we call Badger Care here in Wisconsin. And so if you have a Forward Health Card, which we know over 1 million people here in the state of Wisconsin actually use the Badger Care program because of a bill that you might have heard that was passed this summer called the Big Beautiful Bill. It's going to have a potential impact on folks that currently are Badger Care users. And so I just want to kind of share this information to keep people aware, because I think, as your show is all about, Coral, knowledge is power.
Right.
And if we don't have the knowledge, then we don't know what to look for. And so the big thing about this bill is it basically, as you might have heard, cut taxes. And it primarily about 85, or like a majority of those tax cuts went to corporations and the wealthy 1%. It costs about $3.4 trillion to make that happen. And so where are they going to cut funds to try to pay for that? From Badger Care.
Badger Care.
As an example. And so what is that going to look like? Well, so there's two things that I want people to be aware of. And we're not sure exactly how soon in the future this will be implemented. But again, knowledge is power. So I want to share this. Is that one is with the work requirements. So you need to have 80 hours a month of either education, work, or volunteering. And then further, that's going to be verified much more frequently. So before it was once a year, now they've put in a lot more, that will be a lot more checks to make sure you're doing that. And what I think is so unfortunate is that when people are sick, the last thing they are able to do is to think about filling out all this paperwork.
Right.
I mean, or, they're taking care of a sick kid or a sick parent. And what's, I think, really alarming, and why, again, going back to your show about how knowledge is power, they did this on a smaller scale, for example, in the state of Arkansas, and they implemented these additional verification checks and this 80-hour requirement in order to get, your health care. And what they saw is that within the first 7 months, 18,000 people lost coverage, because if you don't follow the requirements, then they kick you off your coverage.
Wow.
So I just want to make sure that I'm sharing this with your listeners because it's important for people to just stay ahead of it. Always be asking, are the new forms and like filling it out, or if like if your son or daughter or you yourself, because I think the last thing we want is for people to be kicked off their health care and then they're scrambling.
Right.
So to me, this was something that was really important. We are anticipating that over 270,000 Wisconsinites could lose coverage because of like red tape, which I think is just ridiculous. So Wisconsinites are worried about taking care of their grandma or their kids, and yet at the same time, they're going to be having to try to figure out how to fill out all this new red tape and paperwork. Like we should be making it easier for folks to access healthcare, not harder.
Right. And you said 270,000?
Yes.
That's a lot. And where do all those people go? Then what do they do?
Right.
It's just, it's an unanswerable question, I know, but it's just the numbers are staggering.
Right. And I think what is also important, and again, why we want to share this, is it's not that people aren't willing to do what's necessary. Like folks, when they're able to, they'll fill out their paperwork, they'll follow the process. But I think what is so scary is a lot of people just don't know.
Right.
And that's what we saw, those 18,000. A lot of folks were saying, I just didn't even know the process changed.
Right.
I didn't even know I was supposed to like call a different number or fill out a different form. Like, so this is why I think we want to stay ahead of it. And for me, I think this is something that we also want to make sure that we are looking at in the future, how we can change these things, because we need to make sure healthcare is accessible to everybody.
Right.
I was actually, when I was driving here, Cora, I was thinking about when we were the Affordable Care Act and we were trying to fight to get that.
Yes.
I had a sign that I made that said my car had better insurance than me, because you're required to get insurance on your car, but yet like you weren't required to have insurance as a person.
Right.
So we value a car at that point more than we value like the people of this country.
Right.
It was infuriating.
Yeah.
And so I think this is a fight that we still need to fight for access to quality, affordable healthcare. But while we are doing that, knowing that these restrictions that came out of the big, beautiful bill, which I call the big, brutal bill, Coral, is just, I mean, we're paying for these tax cuts for the wealthy 1%, and it's wrong. But this is what I think listeners just need to be aware of.
Yeah, no, I agree. I know I've read somewhere, I saw somewhere something about the big, beautiful bill. I didn't even know exactly what it was, and then you have explained that. But how will the average person know? I mean, I'm glad that the people that are listening to us today will know, and they can call that help desk number that you gave out, a few moments ago, and maybe it'll be a good idea for us to give it again before, we wrap the show.
Yeah.
But how are people being notified of these changes?
Right.
If they are.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's something that now the state is like working through, is exactly what's the best way to notify. How can we make sure we are ahead of it? Our big challenge is we're still waiting for what this looks like to continue to be rolled out of Washington.
Right.
We know that these kind of work restrictions and verification requirements are coming because they're important requirements to how we get money from the state to do, like from the federal government for the state to do this. But I think how exactly this is all going to be implemented is still to be determined.
Okay.
But nonetheless, we still want to talk about it, because what we've learned, Coral, is people need to hear things 5 to 7 times minimal before they remember. And so if we only tell you right before this happens, you're worried about, are you going to make your rent check? And oh my gosh, who's picking up your kid after school? Or you have to cook dinner tonight. Like, so there's so many other things that folks are thinking about. And so to me, I just want to make sure we are talking about this now. So this is on folks' radars as it comes down.
I think that's critical. Is there anything else that you wanted to say as particularly relates to healthcare?
I mean, I think the only other big piece to share about the big, beautiful bill is its impact too on Medicare. So there's going to be a few potential cuts to Medicare that we are seeing. One is that they are limiting the federal government's ability to negotiate prescription drugs for certain drugs, which to me is mind-boggling, because how do we get cheaper prices? It's if you have all of these millions of people that represent, like, your purchasing power can negotiate for a cheaper price. And so they're taking that away from certain medications. So that's something I think to be on the lookout for. And then subsidies for certain folks with Medicare might also be addressed. So those are two other things for people to be aware of as a result of the big, beautiful bill.
Who decided to call this the big, beautiful bill? I'm having a hard time with that.
Carl, I call it the big, brutal bill or the big BS bill, quite frankly, because, I mean, unless you're Jeff Bezos,
right,
or I don't know, like P. Diddy, I don't really know who this is helping, Coral. Like, it's not, it's not helping me. I don't think it's helping a lot of listeners. Right. It's just making life a lot more difficult. And the other thing that I will just say is that what I think is also infuriating is that some of these tax cuts, they're not permanent for when it comes to people that are, middle or working class. They keep them permanent for, again, billionaires and corporations. And so going back to who titled this big, beautiful bill, I think is it's a wolf in sheep's clothing, right, as they say.
That's what it sounds like.
Because when you actually look under the hood, I think folks would say it's far from beautiful.
Yeah, it sure sounds that way. It sounds problematic. So you made reference earlier to, you were talking about the cup of coffee that you had that ended up being double what you were expecting. I know one of the things that we thought we would touch base on is the cost of food,
right,
and the increases and why that is. And I know that you wanted to just share some knowledge and some information in that topic area as well. So please do.
Well, so people might have heard, or at the very least, you've experienced it at the grocery store.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
I used to love to buy ribeye steaks. I don't buy them so much anymore. I wait till they go on sale.
Yeah. I mean, it's almost like overnight these food costs went up.
Right.
And
why is a $8 steak now $20?
No, I know. Why is my $2 cup of coffee now $5?
Right.
I mean, this is like insane, especially when the president, he talked about he was going to lower costs, and it's just been the exact opposite.
Right.
So where we are seeing costs increase in particular is, you might have heard, like, through tariffs, and everyone's talking about tariffs. I really think that when you look at tariffs, it's just a code word for it's a tax on you, because basically the food that is coming in that helps us keep our prices low is being taxed. And while they're taxing the country, the, Hormel or your mac and cheese company, they're actually putting that tax on you.
Yes.
And the Grocers Association, when they were looking at this, they talked about, I think they looked at, I'm just like, want to make sure I get this right, but because of tariffs, they're going to see prices go up, I think, on average, $1,300 a year total. Like, so that's $1,300 more to your grocery bill.
Right.
And I don't think people are buying ribeye steaks either. Like, so depending on what you're buying, like, that can be even more. And so this is, again, something that we've got to get under control.
Right.
Right. Because it's hurting people's pockets more than anything. And you know what else is just frustrating is it's hurting our farmers, Coral, because they're not able to sell their crops. And that's been another crisis here, too, in the state. So if you think about it, what are some ways that maybe people might address this? Is a lot of folks, we have 700,000 Wisconsinites on food share. But what is really concerning about food share is, since the big, beautiful bill passed, they put more red tape, more restrictions, Coral, on these 700,000 Wisconsinites that are using food share to pay for their groceries. And it's not that, you can't get more food share money because the food's gone up. You're still going to get, your $400, $500 a month, regardless of what the price of groceries are. And so as we are seeing the big, beautiful bill kind of going back to that change that we want to talk about, is there's going to be additional requirements to report your work.
Okay.
And additional and like the same kind of work requirements of 80 hours a month. Now, one thing I just want to share about the additional requirements that I think is actually important is that kids that, if you didn't have to report about kids as much, and that's going to change. So if you think about it, you now have 2 kids that are 8 or 9, and you couldn't find childcare. That's not allowed to be an exception anymore like it was in the past. So
what are you supposed to do?
I mean, so I think this is where, again, using resources and like keeping people aware of kind of how you can make sure you're working in partnership to let people know, but it's just going to get harder, which again is why we are talking about this, so people are aware.
No, there's a lot to talk about. And I know with my example, I kind of heard my niece in my head saying, T, the you and your first world problems, we don't want to, focus on that.
Right.
But what you're saying, I mean, this is real with people with the paperwork and all of that. But it looks like it is time for us to take another break in the show.
Okay.
So, but again, callers, I want to encourage you to, while we have her here, give a call in to ask a question of Sarah Godlewski. The number here is 414-444-5250. That is 5250 or 5253. And we will be right back with more Money Talks after the break. Thank you for listening. Welcome back. This is Money Talks with Attorney Coral. I have our Secretary of State for the state of Wisconsin with me in the studio this morning, Sarah Godlewski. Thank you, Sarah, for
Oh my
being
gosh.
here.
Yes, Coral, thank you for, again, I just can't believe we're wrapping up almost like the
Yeah,
last
yeah,
segment.
the last segment, because we're just sitting here talking back and forth. You've brought such a wealth of knowledge and information. So thank you for being who you are. Thank you for being as smart as you are and as experienced and as knowledgeable as you are, because you're able to come and you're able to talk about things that are complex, but you're breaking it down and you're making it easy to understand, and you're giving out good resources that people could call and ask questions of. So thank you for that.
Well, again, Coral, I just want to say thank you for having me, because I think this is not always the most sexy thing to talk about, but it's really important as far as what people can be expecting and what to be on the lookout for.
Right, right. If you wouldn't mind, Sarah, you mentioned the reference number for the 211 Wisconsin earlier.
Yep.
Would you mind just explaining what that is again, just briefly, and giving that number out to the public another time?
So 211 Wisconsin is a connector. So it like will help you navigate maybe what it is that you are facing. Because I think when you're facing issues, you don't know where to go. And so 211 can be a resource to help you navigate that. And that number is 414-773-0211. Again, that's 414-773-0211.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Okay, so we mentioned this briefly at the top of the show that you recently announced that you were running for lieutenant governor. Tell us about that. Where things stand with all of that, Sarah?
Yes. So I announced my campaign probably a little over a month ago, Coral. And for me, it's about fighting for Wisconsinites. That's why I ran for state treasurer. That's why I've been honored to serve as Secretary of State, because I think, as we just talked about earlier, the system isn't working for folks. I mean, it's working for, the Jeff Bezoses of the world, millionaires and corporations, but why are hardworking folks continuing to struggle? Whether that is access to healthcare, and even when they are working to get their access to the healthcare, they're putting up more barriers to make it even harder. And it's not that people want a handout, but they need sometimes a hand up. And instead, when folks are at their most vulnerable, we're beating them down. And so to me, when I look at what is happening, I'm like, this is not okay. I look at the Wisconsin that I grew up in. I had access to good public schools. My parents they were part of a union that gave them benefits. And so they were able to save for retirement. Meanwhile, we know folks have to work 2 to 3 jobs just to stay afloat, and not even like get ahead. And so I just think that we can change this. And that's exactly, to me, why I'm running. And I will tell you, Coral, when I got involved in politics, I was a political nobody from the Chippewa Valley over in the western part of the state. And I think they're like, all right, good luck, Sarah. Don't call us. We'll call you. And when I won my first election statewide as state treasurer, again, it was a role that people are like, well, there's nothing that she can do. And we, for example, we created a foreclosure prevention fund and kept people in their homes during COVID when folks were employed and unemployed and couldn't make payments.
Right.
Or we started an organization to help first-time homeowners.
Right.
Here in Milwaukee, it's one of the worst places for Black people to buy a home. And so we helped work to create an organization that would help people buying homes.
Right.
And so I think when people tell me what I can't do, I just show them, Coral, what we can do. And I think, quite frankly, we need more of that, get it done mentality.
And that's why I called you a winner, really. At the start of the show, I had to say that. And I mean that, because running a statewide campaign is more than a notion. And you flipped some of the conservative counties in order to pull that win off. No doubt about it.
Yes.
So that's yes. So
9.
All right, 9. Okay, I'm glad
who's counting, Coral? Who's counting?
I'm glad you had the number handy.
Right, I
knew it was several. I didn't know how many.
Right.
I mean, that's remarkable, Sarah. Yeah. That is remarkable.
But to me, it's about showing up and listening. And that's exactly one of the reasons, Coral, why I'm here is I want your listeners to know that I am listening. I want to know how I can be helpful, because we've got to show up. And it's not just showing up. As my mom said, God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. Sarah, politicians talk way too much. And Cora, I might have talked a lot this hour, but we got to do more listening so we can also do our best to actually make systems that work for people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, Sarah, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you this question. Okay. So following the news, and we see that our Attorney General Call is not going to run for governor, is going to instead run to be our Attorney General again. Does that, or will that, or might that affect your campaign for lieutenant governor? That maybe you'll reconsider things and then go for a even higher office?
Right. Well, I am flattered, Coral, that you asked. But for me, at this particular moment, I think that the lieutenant governor role is the best office for me. I want to be a team player, and that's what this role is. It's working with the team to get these complex issues solved. And so well, Josh, and for your listeners, Josh is the attorney general, and the rumor was that he was going to run for governor. He's not. But no, I'm still going to stay the course, and hopefully we'll meet a lot of your listeners in person. And so I would encourage your listeners to go to it's sarahforwisconsin.com is my website. And so people can send me an email. We'd love to visit a community activity, or if there's things that you are thinking about that maybe we aren't addressing. Again, that's how we learn and become better.
Oh, that's fantastic. Okay. Well, the thing is, you are young and you are energetic.
Oh my gosh, my skincare is work for those listeners. I'm like, I am not that young, Cora, but clearly my skin routine is working for you. So.
No, but you are, and you're energetic, and you've got, the world is your oyster, and you've got a long political future in front of you. And I know just from my readings that oftentimes people who land in the lieutenant governor's spot, they're fortunate enough to win that seat. That sometimes that's a nice stair step to the governor's office as well.
Right.
So I just have such confidence in your vision and your heart for people, just sitting here getting to know you even better. I know we've talked and met before, but I just really enjoyed having you here today, Sarah.
Well, thank you, Cora. I appreciate it. And for those listeners, I know that they know how important money talks, but it does. And we know that when you know more about your finances, you can be set up more for success, Coral. So you're doing that day in and day out with your community. And we could have dorked out about savings accounts and all those other issues, small business, and I've done that before, so I'll have to come back again. And
no, absolutely,
we could talk more about those things too.
We definitely want to talk more about those things. So give it up, everyone, the audience, for Sarah Godlewski, our Secretary of State, who is now running for Lieutenant Governor. Sarah, if you would please give your website again, that people can reach out to you and let you know about different community activities.
Yeah, so the website is Sarah with an H. I know there's a lot of different ways to spell it. And then it's for FOR, and then Wisconsin all spelled out. So it's sarahforwisconsin.com all spelled out. They can go to the website, and there's a contact me link right there, and you can learn more, and hopefully we'll be visiting you soon while we're on the trail.
Okay, that sounds fantastic. And I'm glad you spelled that out, because even I am guilty of doing Sarah without the H.
I know.
That H is important, so they can make sure that they get where they need to be.
All right. I mean, Sarah's without an H are great, but I'm Sarah with an H.
You're
so
Sarah with an H.
Yes.
Sarah with an H. So that's important to remember. Okay. Well, we appreciate that information. And again, I just want to remind everyone that this show is sponsored by Columbia Savings and Loan Association, and that we are located at 2020 West Fond du Lac Avenue in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And the telephone number, if you'd like to reach out to Columbia, is 414-374-0486. That is 414 374-0486. Please come to Columbia Savings and Loan Association, open a savings account, open a CD. We'll be happy to have you. We use the money for good use in the community as a community bank and provide home ownership or make home ownership possible for people that might not otherwise qualify. So that's it. That's our show for today. We'll be back next week, Thursday, same time, same channel with Money Talks with Attorney Coral. And we're looking forward to seeing everyone back next week. Thank you so much for listening. Thanks again, Sarah, for being here.
Thanks for having me, Coral.